thought I would show some on Academy videos on Monday after the test, so that it's not like you don't have to see them, but at least you can see what's there, and if you want to look at them again, it can clarify some stuff for you. So anyway, so tired, fatigue, and I did give y'all an assignment for Mrs. Bird for a HESI, and it's actually in fatigue. I did put that. There's so much explaining to do about where everything is, because there's like bits and pieces throughout the book, and so that's why it's so awful long on the assignment thing. It's like, okay, read to here and stop, and then read from here to here and stop, and whatever. Because some of this stuff will be it's 11 AB, and so you don't have to read all of it. I want you to read. I mean, there's no way you can read all of it. It's probably any way to read, but we'll do the best we can. Okay, so what other manifestations, like in the hospital, would you see with anemia?
Low hemoglobin.
What's that other? Some people were talking about hemoglobin. What? Somebody else? Right. Yeah. So increase heart rate. Yeah. And then we've said the decreased. So it's hemoglobin, and what all goes with hemoglobin and what else? Red blood cells. Yeah, good. Because I'm sure most of y'all have had a patient with anemia already, haven't you? When you're looking at your labs. So yeah, are we going to have a low hemoglobin? So what if you're really low and you try to exert yourself? What else happens with besides your heart rate?
You get vertigo.
Right, because you can have dizziness and all that. Yeah, vertigo and vertigo really means like a spinning around feeling, and dizzy can mean that you're feeling sort of thing. And I had an episode with that. I just gave Carrie.
She's here. I think she might want to go print here. She's printing.
Oh, she'll be back then. Okay. I don't know if the door is locked or not. I don't know if anybody out, because we really didn't say when the thing was, but yeah, it's cracked. But anyway, Carrie was working the day that I was donating blood. It was like December 28th when we were on winter break, that's what we're supposed to call it. And so I was getting ready to be stuck and all that, and she came up and she said, I'm gonna have to go back to work, because they're kind of backed up, and I didn't make an appointment and all. But during that time, I take fish oil and flax oil and all this stuff, and you know what that might do to your blood. It sort of thins it, and so it can, and if you're on other blood thinners and stuff, that can be a problem. So that's something they've got to know with your patients too. But I just did my little squeeze every 3 to 5 seconds, but I did every 3 seconds on the lower end, so I did it, got done like in 10 minutes, because there was a clock just like looking over there, and I could see 10 minutes, it would boom, it stopped, and so they started getting blood samples from me and all that kind of stuff, and then I started feeling just like nauseated and like I was gonna pass out, and I had this like ache right there. I don't know what in the world that was, but it was just fun, and I felt like I had a arrhythmia. I know I did, because it was kind of skipping, but I was feeling it right here, and I just said, they put a fan on me, and they got 2 little bottles of, or little cans of juice that were in a cooler, and put them behind my neck and put my feet up, but they never took my blood pressure. That's kind of weird, isn't it? But they never did take my blood pressure, and I just decided I would feel better after, and I drank one of them. It really can be, because I really had, I guess it was blood loss, or like volume, and it just, I'm 60 years old, so maybe I don't adapt as well to a lot of things like I used to. I never had that experience before, so that was, but it really can make you feel strange, and so if you're losing blood pretty quickly, you could have like problems. So we can, it can though, if you're exerting yourself and you have anemia, what else? So we have low blood pressure and Increased what else? What happens if your heart's working as hard as it can to pump the blood that you do have? What else can? Because you got your respirations. Because your respiratory tract does a lot of compensating, doesn't it? And so if your heart's having problems in the respiratory tract tries to help out, and if you got metabolic problems, the respiratory tract tries to help out too, doesn't it? That's I did teach respiratory while y'all were getting respiratory here with Miss Walker, and I learned a whole lot studying all that stuff. I studied really, really hard because I hadn't taught it in a long time, but it really is. I don't know if I've told you this before, but our one of our master students a couple of years ago, I was her preceptor, and so she did the whole elimination unit and she was a renal nurse, though. I mean, she was really into advanced stuff like doing dialysis and stuff like that. But she was talking. I had to tape her because I was teaching in PIA while she was teaching in here. So I had to have lots of videos or CDs, whatever, to hear how she was doing. She did great. But she would always talk about the Three Amigos. And did I tell you this before? The three things that work with each other to kind of compensate for things. Because of course we know the heart will compensate if the respiratory tract's not working right? I mean the heart has to beat faster if you've got some problems with your respiratory tract. And then what compensates a lot with this acid-base stuff? The kidney, right? So that's like the Three Amigos. I think that's a great concept for y'all to have in your head that the kidneys, the lungs, and the heart are working all together necessarily. Just about anemia, but you really do. Your body really has all these checks and balances, and then it really takes a lot to bring you down. I mean, because your body really has all these ways to try to make things better. So anyway, I decided to do that video with the wobble thing, just because it really does. Yeah, he really moves and he gets so sweaty and all that stuff. Sometimes he rips his britches with doing that little butt move too. So he did rip his britches for him prom. He did. Yeah, he did. Anyway, that had to tell you how much what happened, and they fixed it up. All right. So, hematology. Some of this is other blood cells besides red. We're talking more about red blood cells than anything else. But I do want y'all to know, and I think you've already kind of learned probably white blood cells and platelets and red blood cells and hemoglobin and all that kind of thing. And you've seen it a lot, so hopefully you know that. But what you can have, like a normal of white blood cells is 4,000 to 11,000, or you can have sometimes it's 5,000 to 10,500 or whatever. But it's going to be close to that. I kind of gave the long version, like 4,500 to 11,000, or maybe 4,000 to 10,000. So don't worry about that. We're not going to test you on something that's so minuscule if it's going to be at the upper or lower limits. So it sort of depends on the way that the machine's calibrated at the place where you're getting your labs done. So some of the things that we've got to be in touch with is the neutrophils, and I think we did talk about that. What do the neutrophils do? Yeah. How do they fight the infection?
Engulf it.
They eat it, don't they? Yeah, they engulf it. The phagocytes or whatever that's.
They can do that. Antibodies.
Yeah, and they can tag it for the making of the antibodies. Right. Yeah, and so, yeah, the neutrophils are phagocytes. They're just like the Pac-Man that just come in. Except they don't just eat like this. They engulf. I have a video thing I'll show you when we talk about the cancer stuff too. It's really cool. So anyway, you do want to know that it's 50 to 70% they're active phagocytes, And they're the first on the scene. That's your first line of defense against infection, and that's what's like with chemotherapy. That's the first thing that is affected because they divide so fast. Chemotherapy usually goes after cells that are dividing rapidly. So, but the lifespan is only about 12 to 18 hours, and that's amazing. They have a really short life. Our other phagocytes, like the monocytes of the macrophages and the tissues, live a whole lot longer. They can live for a really long time. And we'll talk more about that in our immunity unit. And I talked to Ms. Rumble's going to be the course coordinator of 211 AD the first 4 weeks of the summer. And I told her I wanted to teach immunity in the 2 cancers if they let me do that. She said, "Oh yeah, we're what? Let me teach that." So anyway, that's my thing. But so on your red blood cells, y'all learned about red blood cells having to do with metabolism. What did y'all learn about with the red blood cells? How long do they live?
120 days.
Yeah. So, or 3 to 4. They can be up to 120 days, right? So why did you need to know that?
A1C for diabetes.
Yeah, A1C, right. So y'all already know that part. So you got that, two units in a row that you're going to be, well, not 2 units in a row exactly, but y'all are moving really fast. Y'all just done the test anyway. So, okay. And so adult males and adult females have a little bit different red blood cell count. Who has the highest?
Males.
The males. Why is that?
Size of the body.
Well, and what's different with hormones? Yes, testosterone increases red blood cell production. And I'll use this example of something that I learned. My first year as a nurse, actually, I worked on a surgical unit. It was a general surgery unit. We had all kinds of surgical patients, but we had 3 rooms. I think we had like 38 beds on our unit. We had 2 halls, and we'd have a team leader for one hall and a team leader for the other hall. And the team leader would give the meds and kind of take care of things and keep up with things. But anyway, we had 3 rooms that could be designated for like ICU rooms for one-on-one care. And so we had patients that would come from surgery having had a kidney transplant, and so those people ended up being anemic, right? And we talked about that again, of how the kidney works with that. But that when I came in the door, maybe it's just because of the conflict. But anyway, what the hell was that? Not a snap here, but what they would give the patients, even if it's a woman, when they were leaving the hospital after they have had their kidney transplant, they would give them halotestin. So, and that was a testosterone. Oh, thank you. Thank you. You're rescuing me. I appreciate that. Gosh, it's even in French. Mouchoir en papier. Boy, take all your Kleenexes. I hope I didn't get one. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. All right. But anyway, that helped them to build up their hemoglobin because we didn't have erythropoietin. What do you call it? I think I've got it on here in a minute. I lose my words so many times. I talk too fast and then it goes out of my head. But anyway, it's a artificial form of it. It's not. It isn't from people or whatever the erythropoietin that you need. But the halotestin would increase the erythropoietin release from the kidney once the kidney that was transplanted started functioning well and all that. But that really would help to stimulate the bone marrow to make the red blood cells. And then the women would end up having facial hair, and their voice would go lower. That's all we had. I mean, we don't have to. We didn't have any of that stuff. It seemed now I'm going like back in the dinosaur days of medicine, but that's what you had to do. You'd have to give them male hormones, and that would build up their blood. And so you don't have to just memorize this, but just do know that the levels are higher in males because of that testosterone. And so you're going to have like the males about 14 to 18. Again, it depends on what your scale is with the machine that your facility's using. And then the hematocrits for 42 to 52 or something like that. But in the adult females, 12 to 16 or 37 to 47, you may see 12 to 14. I mean, it can vary. But 12 is really the lowest that would be considered a normal hemoglobin. Like when we have a cancer patient, we would think 12 was good for a male, just because that's good enough. But once it dropped below 12, then they would be extremely tired and such. And then our platelets last about 10 days. So that's a real difference in what the bone marrow puts out, doesn't it? It's not going to put out the red blood cells nearly as quickly. They don't need to because they live so long. But then those neutrophils are just turn. And not like when you give that Neutrophils, or y'all seen that advertisement with the little sticker thing that it's what do you call it, on point or something? I don't know what you call that. The Neulasta, but I can't remember what they call the little device, but it gives the shot, and you don't have to go back to the office or anything to do that. They'll just give it to you automatically at home. I guess they have to calibrate it and everything so that it'll give it at the right time. But it will, if you give that, it really, really revs it up very, very quickly once it starts. It may take several days to start revving it up, but it really turns it out. And sometimes it gives you too many white blood cells, and that can make you feel bad too. Okay, so yeah, I do want you to know the normal values, at least within a range. Like it could be 12 to 18. That could be normal, but the women are going to be on the low end, and the men will be on more like the high end. So we used to have a chart in our textbook that had all these levels for all these different age groups and everything, and it does vary according to age with children and all. But you can sort of look at that if you need to look up in a lab book. You can tell what a certain age child ought to have as far as hemoglobin, if it needs to be that specific. But anyway, one thing that I do want you to look up, and you probably have that, might be in your fundamentals book too, because some of y'all don't have a lab book here. Or does everybody have a lab book? Mm-hmm. And it's probably, if you could just look up bone marrow biopsy or ask for it, I want you to look and see what all that involves. And the big thing is it is invasive, and it does require a healthcare provider order, of course. You can't just do it like you can just go and do a blood pressure. But it does require informed consent, signed informed consent, because it is they do use it in the sternum or the iliac crest. The iliac crest is where they would do like a biopsy of it. Sometimes they just pull the marrow out and just aspirate it and look at it under the microscope. But it's actually a biopsy. They pull more tissue, and so that they can determine if there's any malignancy there, or if there's any problem with how many how many cells they're producing. Yeah,
I actually go up on the floor and help the oncologist do that. And when he does biopsies, he normally gets an applicant.
Yeah, I haven't seen a sternal one in a long time, but we used to see a lot of them when I first got out of school, and it's like they're attacking a vampire with a I mean, with a stake, it is. It's a big old hollow needle. It really looks like that. That sounds terrible, but it really is like that.
But they usually get like a little bonus by that big.
So they kind of chip off enough that they can really look at it. Oh yeah, you have to. And sometimes a lot of times the pathologist does that at Rowan anyway. I don't know other places, but some of them are real little ladies, and they just climb up on the bed and just put all their weight on there trying to get it in there. I mean that's really tough, and then you kind of drill down in there and then suck out a sample. So it's not a fun thing. So okay. So our red blood cells don't look like many other cells, do they? They're called biconcave, and there's no nucleus in a mature red blood cell. That's kind of interesting, isn't it? No nucleus. If you have a nucleated red blood cell, it may say NRBC on your CBC, and that means that it's abnormal or it's an immature cell, because they do have a nucleus at one time in the earlier phases of the production. So it's going to, the red blood cells are going to transport the oxygen to the body tissues, and what does the oxygen stick to?
Hemoglobin.
Yeah, hemoglobin. So, and it binds with some CO2 and carries it to the lungs for excretion too. And another interesting thing is that, do y'all know why people can die from carbon monoxide? Yeah, because it's more affinity. The hemoglobin has more affinity for carbon monoxide than it does with O2, isn't it? So yeah, and so that's why you don't get your perfusion. So yeah, I gotta say this Walker's favorite word multiple times today. It's a good word. It's definitely a good word. All right. And then abnormal numbers of red blood cells, and if they have a weird size or shape, that looks weird, but that really is normal. Or if you have problems with the hemoglobin content or some kind of structural problem, it can adversely affect health. So what's a structural change that you may be aware of in red blood cells? Sickle, yeah, they really do look like a sickle, and they stick together, and then it's hard for the perfusion to take place. That's one of our exemplars in 211 also. That's partly why I told you to stop reading at sickle cell, because we'll do that in 211. All right. So this is the reason for this shape is that it increases the surface area, because you've got the dips on both sides, and so it does add more surface area than just a circle would have. And so it also allows them to fold kind of or to be very flexible, so that they can go to the little tiny capillaries where the perfusion actually does take place, and it doesn't mess with the cell membrane. It's very flexible if they're healthy red blood cells. So when you have a red blood cell transfusion, this is just this is not 100% right, but what you can do as an estimate is if your patient has like a hemoglobin of 7 and they get 1 unit of red blood cells, it's usually going to go to about 8. And we used to give like 3 units at a time. They really stopped doing that, trying to do like just get by with blood, because there's risks for having blood transfusion. So if they can start catching up after that 1 unit, then it's not going to be fast. But if they're not in tremendous distress, they'll kind of wait until they start making their own red blood cells. But what you do is just kind of assume, like if you got 3 units, it would go up to what? Like if it would go to 7. Like about 10, yeah. It's not going to be exact, but that's just it's kind of a little estimate thing, just sort of a little tricky thing to think with. And this is just showing the different kinds of. Here's the mature red blood cell, the biconcave, and then here's a skin cell, a fibroblast, and then this is a neuron. So these are the star-shaped neurons. So anyway, that's a whole different way that cells are differentiated, or knowing what shape to become when they as a fetus. That's one of the things I love to talk about, and we'll probably do that on next Tuesday. And I have I think I can still get it through my video broke, but it's on YouTube. So the miracle it's in there, and it has something to do with explaining how cancer cells come about, and differentiation and all that, becoming a nerve cell, becoming a skin cell, or becoming a blood cell. And so they have unique shapes for the function that they're going to perform. All right, and this is, I have several of these types of pictures, because sometimes one may speak to you better than another, but we've got, have y'all heard of granulocytes? And there's granules in granulocytes, and when you look on your computer, you'll be able to see that better. But that one in the top is granulocytes, but it's got like the polys. It's polymorphic nucleus. It's got multiple. The nucleus is in several different pieces, and so that's why they're called polys. And that's actually a basophil, but neutrophils are polys. That's what neutrophils are called a lot of times. And then you got the eosinophils, and they've got granules as well. And our lymphocyte does have a nucleus in there, and then there's the neutrophil. It's got the granules, and it looks like Mickey Mouse with distorted ears. But and then the monocyte has like a peanut-shaped nucleus. And then here's this is if you see that this is the side view of the red blood cell. The front view is the biconcave, but if you look at it from the side, then it's just sort of straight. And then the anisocytosis means varying sizes of the cells. And the poikilocytosis is it's lots of different kinds of shapes. And then the sickle cell, of course, that you've got your half moon where they've kind of got a way to hook together and mess everything up. And platelets are megakaryocytes, but they split up into the little fragments, and so platelets are just real tiny, and that's why we have so many of them. So, okay. And then this is the blood cell development. It's got a blood stem cell, and it can become any kind of blood cell. So that's a really cool kind of thing. We've got erythroblast, myeloblasts, monoblasts, lymphoblasts, and megakaryoblast. And then the megakaryocyte, and then the thrombocytes with the platelets. And so the lymphoblast and the monoblast, and lymphocytes, monocytes. And then we have our neutrophils coming here. This is a banded cell. Sometimes the immature ones, they call them bands. Or segs, like seg, it's not segmented, but they call them segs or bands, and those are the immature, right before the mature neutrophil. And then the eosinophils are sort of look like a granulocyte, also a neutrophil, and then the basophils it's not quite segmented the same way. But this can kind of tell you metamyelocyte from the eosinophil, metamyelocyte from the neutrophil, megakaryocyte, because this is the big cell that breaks into little pieces. And then this is the red blood cell. That's what we're really talking about in this particular unit. But you kind of got to know what the other ones are doing as well. And the immediate one immature cell right before the mature red blood cells is the reticulocyte. So reticulocytes can be really, really important they can carry some oxygen, but they don't have near as great oxygen carrying capacity as the erythrocytes that are mature. So anyway, that's just the way that the mature ones go from a stem cell to the mature cells that are functional. Red blood cell development is erythropoiesis, and you can have like lymphopoiesis, and you can have anyway, the poiesis means that it's the production of the red blood cell. And the actual process of becoming a red blood cell after the stem cell gets a chemical message to tell it what to do, it takes about 3 to 5 days. So, but as far as their lifespan, it's like 120. Okay, and the thing that you really got to know about here, I think y'all learned about the stimulus for breathing in normal people that don't have COPD is what? Is it? Isn't it really CO2 accumulation? That's what I have taught and everything. It's CO2 accumulation, but that means that reduces hypoxia, though, doesn't it? Of course it does, because it's not going to carry the oxygen. It's going to accumulate. But so anyway, in a COPD patient, though, it is hypoxia, isn't it? So that's the reason why you don't do what with your oxygen, your supplemental oxygen. So yeah, you don't want to turn it up too far, do you? Because then they won't be hypoxic anymore, and guess what they won't do?
Breathe.
Yeah. So in this aspect, though, the stimulus for the red blood cell production is tissue hypoxia, not low red blood cells. You think, okay, there's huge red blood cells, and the white blood cells and all. There's lots of stimuli for it, but the red blood cells, it is tissue hypoxia that tells the kidneys to actually release erythropoietin. Did y'all know that the erythropoietin, which is the stimulus for red blood cell production, is made in the kidneys? Mm-hmm. So that's a big issue sometimes, and that's what's going to go to the bone marrow. The erythropoietin goes to the bone marrow, and then the bone marrow starts making the red cells. So, how many of y'all have had patients with kidney failure, or at least some kidney disease, and they're not functioning very well? So, what do you see in them with their blood counts?
They're anemic.
Do you see that stuff there? In the low hemoglobin, low hematocrit, and all that? Because if the kidneys aren't functioning well, then the erythropoietin's not going to respond as well to the tissue hypoxia. So you really do see a lot of, I think Megan's patient was going to be on like that Darbo codes and just much people carry dialysis. And some people get just the Evogen, the sugar active, but the Darbo's code is a longer acting one that came out. It can last like 2 weeks. Maybe not somebody with that kidneys, but yeah. We had like 3 people on dialysis from last week. They all had their dialysis on Monday, so the students got to take care of them on Tuesday. So I wish somebody got to go and watch the that doesn't always happen. Okay. So, and then we talked about the 120 days already, but and applying it to the A1C. And so when they're worn out, your body does some recycling. So, they know about recycle, reduce, reuse, and stuff. Close the loop and all that little song. So the worn out ones, they're hemolyzed. What's hemolyzed? What is that?
Breakdown of the red blood cell.
Yeah, it's lysis, isn't it? It comes from the word lysis, and lysis is breaking it down and pulling it, taking it apart. And so that can happen in the spleen and the bone marrow and the lymph nodes and the liver too. And so the body tries to recycle the amino acids that can make proteins. And the heme that goes into hemoglobin when there is red blood cell breakdown, and so you still have to have iron stores and things like that, but you do save some of it to be able to make new cells. So if you do have abnormal lysis of cells, just breaking up of the red blood cells, then or impaired liver function or something like that, then the heme converts to bilirubin, and it can accumulate in the serum. So that can make you do what? Like little newborn babies, they have a really high they're getting indirect oxygen, aren't they, from the mom through the placenta. But so as soon as the baby's breathing on their own, though, it's going directly into their system. Oxygen's going directly into their system. They don't need as many red blood cells, and so they blow up. They're lysed, and so if they don't have if their little liver's not quite mature enough to handle those byproducts of the lysis, Yes, they have that jaundice. My daughter had it. She was born like 9 days before the due date, and we had to leave her in the nursery area, except when she was nursing. But they had to put a Billy light on her. They didn't have those that you can take home with you. And then once we finally got her, we had to stay in hospital for 5 days. That's when she's 31, but now, but they told us to take her down to her, undress her down to her diaper, and put her in the window in the living room, so that because we had a lot of sun coming in there, so we just put her little seat and let her have some sun. But it wasn't sunny. That was the problem. It was like a hurricane time and stuff, so that's why they kept us in the hospital so long, because there wasn't any sunshine to get. Then they couldn't send us home with a Billy light. Didn't have those then. Just had the ones in the hospital. Anyway, so. All right, this is just kind of a cool picture. You probably learned this in anatomy and all that, but it's kind of looking at the plasma. Is made out of water and other solutes and proteins, and the formed elements, like when you do a centrifuge, it's gonna spin the formed elements, which is the blood cells, the platelets, the white blood cells, and the red blood cells. It's gonna spin them down, and leave this will rise to the top because it's a little lighter. We got all the different kind of blood cells in there, and then the other solutes are ions like sodium and waste products, gases, regulatory substances, and then the protein up there, albumin and globulin and fibrinogen. You know what fibrinogen does? Has to do with clotting, right? Albumin is made in the liver. It's sort of like the egg white, and that's where we have some imbalances sometimes. Albumin is not normal. That can really cause swelling sometimes. I think some of y'all have had low albumins and your patients got a lot of swelling, right? Maybe abdominal swelling, or maybe sometimes it's in the extremities. But anyway, that's really kind of just an FYI, but if you can sort of visualize what we're talking about and kind of review what's in there, and the formed elements or the blood cells. And then this is another one. This is just another picture, but this is just it's the pluripotent stem cell at the very top, the lymphocyte maturational pathway. So this one goes in a circle here, not the straight down we saw before. And so this is the pluripotent stem cell. So pluri means like it could be anything, right? It can become anything. And so then it becomes a committed myeloid stem cells in the myeloid line, and then you go into the pro-erythroblast. That's very, very immature if you see blast at the end. And that's a basophilic erythroblast. Then it just has all of it, and you don't have to memorize that, but it's just, the point is that it goes through a whole lot of phases before it matures all the way. So reticulocyte and the mature erythrocyte is what we're really looking at. But I think that's a pretty cool picture to show how many phases it goes through. And what you may see if somebody's recovering from anemia, if they've had a lot of blood loss or had some kind of procedure or some kind of medication that caused, sometimes you can actually have hemolysis of cells from the red blood cells from a reaction to a medication. But anyway, that you may have the increase in that when somebody is is really trying to, your bone marrow is trying to really turn out a lot of red blood cells at one time, and more of the reticulocytes escape, and so that it may be a little abnormal, but it's really a compensatory sort of thing. Yes, ma'am.
There was a lady who was actually walking through the hospital, and she had multiple darts and forth, and the baby just kind of fell out. Wow. And hit its head, so it messed up with the bone barrier thing. So when you look at the blood, it's got a whole bunch of like glass and stuff like that. So we got to see all that now.
Man, so you saw it at all different maturity barriers. Okay, I've just got one more sentence here. A few more sentences maybe. Okay, listen, y'all. We may have like polycythemia. Did y'all talk about polycythemia in COPD patients? That they compensate sometimes by your body compensates by making more red blood cells because of the tissue hypoxia they experience. They may have a higher hemoglobin. They may be up to 21 or something like that. And but that can be dangerous because it increases if you've got a whole lot more hemoglobin in your blood volume. It's a vascular space. What's it going to be like if you got 21? Yeah, 21 vessels, whatever. It's going to be thick, isn't it? Viscous, and it's going to be harder to get through vessels, and so it's going to go slower. And if you go slower, what happens? You can have clots, can't you? If it's not moving slow. Okay. And then you can build up like uric acid and have gout and hyperkalemia, the potassium deal, and all that. So it explains that in your book. I got to page. So, all right. I'm sorry we had to do this all screwed up stuff.
Oh, I gave you Aaron's class.
Let's try and walk this for recorder.